Good afternoon, distinguished guests. I would like to thank the Asian Development Bank for their kind invitation to be here with you today. My role is to offer you the big picture panorama as a backdrop for this Asia Clean Energy Forum 2017. Can we have the presentation? Thank you. In doing so, I will be drawing heavily on the recently published third edition of the Sustainable Energy for All Global Tracking Framework, which is a global dashboard that allows us to chart the progress of countries, regions, and the world as a whole towards the 2030 SDG 7 indicators. The global tracking framework is the fruit of a partnership. Sorry, I can't, slide doesn't change, thank you. It's a fruit of a broad partnership co-led by the World Bank and the International Energy Agency, and comprising around 20 global energy agencies, including ESCAP, your very own UN Regional Economic Commission for Asia and Pacific. I'll also be drawing on a companion product called RISE, Regulatory Indicators for Sustainable Energy. RISE is a policy scorecard of unprecedented breadth and depth that documents the quality of the enabling environment of policies and regulations that support the achievement of sustainable energy goals. Based on a wealth of detailed information, RISE scores each country on each dimension of sustainable energy on a score of 0 to 100 and uses a color-coded traffic light system for reporting the results. So the first question is, what were the main results of the global tracking framework for 2017? Well, the news for the world as a whole is really quite sobering, because we are not on track to meet the 2030 objectives. Let's take electricity there in the dial in blue. The global electrification rate climbed to 85% in 2014, but at current trends, it will only reach 91% by 2030. Turning to clean cooking, the purple dial, Axis is far behind at 57% in 2014, and is moving so slowly that we're expected to reach only 72% by 2030. On energy efficiency, the orange dial, improvements have accelerated to reach an improvement of 2.1% per annum in 2014, but still short of the 2.6% target. And finally, for renewable energy, the dial in green, we stand at 18% share of renewable energy consumption in 2014, but progress is very slow, and we're projected only to reach 21% by 2030, which is well short of the 36% target established by Sustainable Energy for All. But the real question of interest to this audience is how the Asia-Pacific region is faring, how far has it progressed, and what are its prospects for the coming year? And this will be the focus of the rest of the presentation. Asia-Pacific electrified faster than any other region from 1990 to 2014. While a number of large electrification deficit countries remain, they are mostly well engaged on the access agenda. Electrification rose in the Asia-Pacific region from 70% in 1990 to 90% in 2014, with 31 out of the 54 Asia-Pacific countries already having reached universal access. Moreover, many Asian-Pacific countries feature on the list of top fastest-moving global performers on electrification during the last 25 years. Countries listed there, such as Bangladesh, Cambodia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all made tremendous progress during this period. Looking ahead, however, 400 million people in the region still live without access to electricity. 2/3 of them are living in India, and about 90% of them live in rural areas. In particular, the progress of 4 highly populated electrification deficit countries in Asia will crucially drive whether or not the world as a whole is able to meet the universal access target. These include Bangladesh, India, and Myanmar. Prospects are quite good, however, because the policy environment in Asia-Pacific is quite favorable to electrification. Looking at electrification trends across the geographic regions, we see there Asia-Pacific in the purple line. And we note a remarkable process of convergence from 1990, where Asia-Pacific lagged a long way behind, to 2014, when it really caught up with much of the rest of the developing world. Turning to the policy scores from RISE, we see that many Asia-Pacific countries are shaded in green, indicating a very strong and favorable policy environment for electricity access. One area where we note room for improvement, however, is on the regulatory environment to support the rollout of solar home systems in rural areas, which seems to have been neglected in a number of countries and may represent a missed opportunity to accelerate the pace of rural electrification. The issue of clean cooking, however, presents an entirely different story. In this space, Asia-Pacific seems to be lagging behind the rest of the world, with only 12 out of the 54 countries already having achieved universal access to clean cooking. Asia also bears a large share of the global challenge in this area, with 2 out of 3 people in the world living without clean cooking being located in Asia, some 2 billion people in all. Moreover, there are 10 Asian countries listed there at the bottom of the slide whose performance on clean cooking will crucially affect whether the global target is reached. In contrast to electricity, we do not see any convergence across regions. The purple line there, Asia-Pacific, remains far away from most developing regions and is suspended somewhere between Africa and the rest of the world. The slope of the line is very flat, indicating the slow pace of progress. Nevertheless, if we look at the few countries globally who've done well on clean cooking during the last 25 years, there are a number of good examples from Asia. And I would particularly like to highlight the experience of Indonesia, which stands out as being probably one of the best performers in the world on expanding access to clean cooking. Turning to energy efficiency, the results are much more encouraging. Asia-Pacific has reduced its energy intensity faster than any other global region during the last 25 years, even if further scope for improvement may still remain. Energy intensity declined steeply from 9 megajoules per dollar in 1990 to 6 megajoules per dollar in 2014. This progress reflects exceptionally strong performance by China, as well as exceptionally strong uptake in the industrial sector. Perhaps the most encouraging trend is the emerging decoupling of economic growth and energy consumption. During the last 25 years, Asia-Pacific tripled its economic output, but only doubled its consumption of energy. Despite this strong performance, there is scope to do considerably more, with many effective energy efficiency policies still to be adopted in the region. As before, many Asian countries, being large energy consumers, will crucially affect the achievement of the global target for energy efficiency. If we look at the energy intensity trends across regions, again, Asia-Pacific is the purple line, you will see how in 1990, Asia-Pacific was the most energy-intensive region in the world. And you see there the remarkable convergence that has taken place over this 25-year period. As of 2014, Asia-Pacic's energy efficiency was about the same as that of Africa, which is quite remarkable when you consider the much higher degree of industrialization on this continent. Nevertheless, a significant margin still remains with the rest of the developing world. It is important to highlight the tremendous contribution made by Asia's industrial sector, whose rate of improvement of energy intensity has continuously accelerated during this period on the far left of the chart, and reached most recently a very impressive performance of improving at 3.2% per annum its level of energy intensity. But I would like to leave you above all with the sense that there are many quick wins that remain to be made in the energy efficiency policy space. RISE shows that there are plenty of countries in the region that are still in the yellow and the red zones. And many of the policies that have yet to be adopted are relatively straightforward and proven in their effectiveness. If we look at the different policy areas on the spidergram on the right, it is striking that in a continent urbanizing as rapidly as Asia, Only 20% of countries have adopted energy efficiency standards for building codes. Other well-proven policies like appliance labeling and minimum energy efficiency performance standards are only being taken up again by about 20% of countries. Similarly, only a small minority have taken measures to make their utilities national champions for energy efficiency or to ensure that public sector procurement acts as a catalyst to stimulate the development of the energy efficiency market. Turning to renewable energy, the results are quite paradoxical. We are well aware of the extraordinary expansion of renewable electricity and of the leading role that Asia-Pacific has played in this area. Indeed, as of today, the absolute amount of renewable energy consumption in Asia-Pacific is twice as much as Europe and America put together. Nevertheless, despite this extraordinary progress, the share of Asia-Pacific's energy needs being met from renewable sources has actually declined from 23% in 1990 to 18% in 2014. How can this be possible? There are three explanations. First of all, renewable energy is made up of two categories: traditional uses of biomass, such as wood and charcoal for cooking in households and heating in small enterprises, as well as modern renewable energy, such as hydro, biofuels, wind, and solar. For perfectly good reasons, the share of traditional biomass falls as economies modernize and develop. In order for the renewable energy share to keep increasing, the expansion of modern renewable energy needs to be larger than the decline in the use of traditional biomass. And this is not yet happening anywhere in the developing world. So we can see here on the chart how, despite the green line, which is the modern renewable energy share in Asia-Pacific going up by 2 percentage points, the overall share of renewable energy has come down by 5 percentage points, and the difference is the reduction in the reliance on traditional biomass. The other key point is that although consumption of modern renewable energy has risen significantly, so has total energy consumption risen significantly. In order for the share to increase, consumption of renewables must rise even faster than total consumption as a whole. And in fact, Asia-Pacific, as we see in this chart, represented again by the purple line, is the only developing region where modern renewable energy share is actually managing to go up, which is already a significant achievement. The third reason why we see this puzzling trend is because while the progress in the electricity sector has been extraordinary, electricity represents only 20% of total energy consumption. And unfortunately, the success in renewable electricity is not reflected in the heating and transport sectors, which account for 80% of energy consumption. So you can see here in this chart how the blue line, the renewable share in electricity, is climbing very substantially, but the red line, the renewable energy share in heating, is essentially completely flat, while in transport there is an increase, but from a very, very tiny base. So unless we can make more progress in heating and transport, our great success with renewable electricity will still only have a modest impact on the renewable share overall. Finally, the RISE indicators show that a number of countries are in the green, but others remain in the yellow when it comes to the policy environment for renewable energy. What we see is that while countries are doing well on establishing renewable energy targets, institutions, mapping resources, and creating incentives for construction of renewable energy capacity, policies to support grid integration are the ones that are still lagging significantly behind and deserve greater attention going forward. A lot of the evidence that I shared with you is readily available on the web for the GTF at gtf.esmap.org and at rise.esmap.org. But to conclude, I would like to say that while the panorama is challenging, there are many reasons to be hopeful. Asia-Pacific has already registered an outstanding performance on electrification and has the know-how to meet this target as long as all remaining countries stay focused on the goal, as they seem to be. On energy efficiency, Asia-Pacific has already demonstrated its ability to make very rapid progress, And although intensity remains somewhat high, there are numerous proven policy measures that are still to be taken and could deliver sustained and continued improvements. Renewable energy is more challenging. Everything suggests that the tremendous progress with renewable electricity will continue and accelerate. But until we expand attention to heat and transportation sectors, it will be difficult for the overall share to rise very rapidly. And finally, on the neglected area of clean cooking, it seems to be perhaps first and foremost an issue of political will or policymaker attention. With strong urbanization trends and a rising middle class in the region, it ought to be possible to make more rapid progress towards the clean cooking agenda, and required investments are relatively modest compared with the clean energy agenda overall. So on balance, it is a very positive outlook for Asia and the Pacific, even though there's no room for complacency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vivien, for that excellent summary of the big picture. I take this opportunity also to sincerely express our thanks to our counterparts in the World Bank and the Sustainable Energy for All initiative, who are our close partners in clean energy as well as energy access-related work. Now, I wish to introduce our next keynote speaker of the plenary session, who is from the International Energy Agency, another close knowledge partner of ADB. He will share specifically the development in energy technologies. He is the International Energy Agency's Deputy Executive Director, Paul Simons. In addition to his many duties, providing leadership and strategic direction alongside the Executive Director, Mr. Simons oversees IEA's Energy Data Center and its wealth of knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Simons.